This is Saturday Morning Mysteries.
And we're your hosts, Alexis and Grace. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Saturday Morning Mysteries, where we're your hosts. I'm Alexis.
I'm Grace.
And I don't know if I'm ready for this today. Quite frankly,
don't be ready.
I'm not. I never will be fully ready for the show that we are covering on this wonderful episode arc, which, if you have not been following for the past couple weeks, is none other than the Hanna-Barbera 1976 one season, one hit wonder, the classic Jabberjaw. It's been a wild roller coaster.
It's been unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't even. There are no words to describe the way that I feel about this show. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of love. I think it all around comes to an appreciation that I've got so far. Now that we're 2 episodes in, maybe this 3rd episode will change my mind one way or the other, though. So Grace is up today. She's going to guide us through this journey.
The best that I can. The blind leading the blind here. If you will. Even though I've watched this episode and written the script. Still,
have we really though? I mean, I was telling Grace this before we started recording, that there was a certain point where, while we were writing our scripts for this, last week, where I was watching my episode and I was like, man, I need to text Grace and be like, how wedded to this show are we? Because I don't know if I can write episodes for this, because I don't know what's going on in this show. It takes too long to explain and write it out. Yeah,
and to me, the forever stubborn had a flash of that moment, and then I was like, but I've already watched this episode.
Yeah. Something needs to happen now.
If I can't unsee it, you can't unhear it.
Fair. That's fair. And I'm gonna watch it as soon as we're done recording, and then I also won't be able to unsee it. So we're all in this together. You stay the course
together. Yes.
Just like Jabberjaw would. You just keep pushing forward no matter how much or how little sense life makes. Keep going.
Yeah, we're really putting as much sense as we can into it. And that is saying something if you've listened to our last 2 episodes.
Yeah. Nonsensical.
And this one this week remains a trip. Both because the writers and animators were tripping while writing this episode, without a doubt. And because it takes us on a trip, emotional, physical, spiritual, mental, all of the above. And before we start today's episode, I find it very interesting. A running theme throughout a lot of our shows is how world events impact our entertainment.
Oh God. Yeah.
Maybe not always purposefully, but in retrospect, many years down the line when we're doing this show, usually our shows are obviously a lot older. The connections are very clear. So 3 years before today's episode aired that I will be covering.
Oh no.
The U.S. This is just so funny because
oh my God.
Why does this show connect with this moment in history? Why did I think this show connected? This ridiculous show.
This is what you took from it.
I was like, why? Why was this my takeaway? Literally, your last episode had praying mantis aliens. And then my episode, I was like, well, clearly this was heavily influenced by the 1973 OPEC oil embargo. That rocked the world economy.
Honestly, maybe those writers had to pay for gas. They knew times were tough.
They had to get to the Hanna-Barbera studio somehow.
And they knew that kids watching the show would also be impacted. They would feel very deeply about this storyline. They're like, oh, we remember that OPEC embargo.
Why are mom and dad fighting more?
Yeah. Those days were so dark.
And we won't fully go into the details of this because I think we've absolutely mentioned this previously on the show. And LOL. Could you imagine if we tried to both unwind this oil embargo and an episode of Jabberjaw at the same time? We would both have a mental breakdown. On air, we would break with reality.
But I mean, not saying that the arguments and the comparisons can't be made. it would just be too much for this one podcast episode.
Yes,
and for our sanity at this time in our lives.
I'm gonna make just like some very quick highlights here, but yeah, like we would deteriorate. This episode would end because we would both be committed for sure.
History professors and economists are like watching with like deep interest right now. Like, oh my God, how are they going to make the link?
Thesis on how much oil ends up in cartoons and commentary on that. Cite
the
us
thesis
as a
title. The thesis title: Jabberjaw: the greedy acts of OPEC, the oil cartel, and their hunger for oil.
It would be 70s cartoons, propaganda against rich oil producing companies, countries, semicolon, how the US used cartoons to exploit our own natural resources. Because
you got this. Explain.
According to my single resource, Wikipedia.
Nice.
By 1972, 83% of American oil imports came from the Middle East. And then, point 2, due to what we will say are select political leanings of America and other Western countries, and who they support that remain extremely relevant and contentious and intense today. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, aka OPEC, began to cut their oil production in response to some of these alliances and support by the West. They cut their oil production and output and put in place an embargo on oil exports through the spring of, it started in 1973 and lasted through the spring of 1974, during which time oil prices rose nearly 300%.
Oof. Yikes.
The US obviously was in economic shock from this, and it forever influenced America's own relationship with energy production as kind of an excuse and way to, or reason to increase our own domestic oil supply. So that's my 3-point synopsis on what happened and how it influenced America. And we've seen oil and oil barons in cartoons many times before. They're always greedy and evil, and the good guys have to stop them from getting more oil. I recall an episode of Darkwing Duck where this really happened. Where it was like a greedy oil baron who wanted to get all of the world's oil supply for themselves so that they could then have all the energy in the world, blah, 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 economic empire, et cetera, et cetera. But like many things with Jabberjaw, things are a little different this time around.
Okay. Things just don't quite make this much sense.
Or fresh off this oil embargo and with a renewed political call to start exploiting our own oil supply, and America's emphasis at this time on how important oil was to the world and that it is the most important product we could possibly have. Today's episodes takes a perhaps pro-oil leaning and tone to it.
Oh, interesting. So the oil baron is the hero in today's episode.
For today's villain, Dr. Robeck, who is pretty much Russian, which is also interesting during these Cold War years.
Yes.
Has one goal in mind. This evil villain wants to destroy the undersea world's oil supplies, launching the world into an economic crisis again, and clearly going after the most valuable resource in the world, oil. And thus, the Neptunes have to stop the bad guy from destroying oil. So, take that as you will.
I just wish this show would give more background information on the villains, because I'm always wondering what led to this point. How did we get here?
I think Dr. Robeck has not given up on the Cold War and said Russia should be the only oil supplier in the world, so I will eliminate everyone else's. And then our good guys said, no, let everyone have oil. And that's the tone.
Can you imagine how Could you imagine how difficult it would be to transport oil from like Russia to the bottom of like to Hydrostan in my last episode, for example? It'd be so expensive. But to me, it sounds like this is a new Cold War where it's actually water people versus land people.
You can drill for oil in the ocean, baby.
Yeah.
That's what it's turned to.
Oh man.
So keep that background in mind as we go through this episode. Doesn't as blatantly come up, but it was the first thing I realized. I was like, why are we protecting someone who wants to destroy the oil?
Yeah.
Why are we like being like, oh my God, yay, oil, et cetera, et cetera. But we're ignoring that maybe we all had to go to the oceans because of nuclear war and climate change, and it's the only way humans could escape. But whatever.
We're back on oil, relying on oil. I mean, we still are, but yeah, we never learned.
Exactly. Even more so now.
Even in the year 2076.
Yep, it's still our liquid gold.
Yeah. Trust us, if we could use coal down there, we would.
We would be, for sure. I mean, we haven't finished watching this season yet. We don't know.
It's possible.
So we start off, yes, with Dr. Robeck, who is a bald Russian man wearing a yellow lab coat with these large orange rubber gloves. So you know immediately that he's some super scientist and definitely getting like murder vibes, because why else are you wearing large rubber gloves? And he's in his lab with some sidekick. And the sidekick is standing in front of this like large vat of oil. Dr. Robeck is explaining while he's holding this like small test tube with a green microbe in it that he has created a microbe that in very small amounts even is able to eat and digest away oil, which, as a side note, would be an incredible invention, like clean up our oceans after an oil spill if we can find like some type of like microorganism that can eat and digest oil and like process it.
Just
like
the oil. Yeah.
It would be amazing. Yeah. And we see with a single drop that Dr. Robeck is showing his assistant, indeed, a single drop of the microbe gobbles up this entire vat of oil, lickety split. And again, he has this ultimatum that he comes up with, which is he can use this microbe to destroy all of the world's oil supplies. But instead of doing it for like some environmental reason, he's using it as per usual as a ransom and a threat, saying, I will destroy all of this unless you give me the oil supplies. So like,
well,
I guess it's not totally pro-oil. It's more of like a pawn here, but also like, fresh off the heels of other countries doing exactly that and saying, we will hold this oil ransom. Pretty fresh from that embargo.
Yeah. This guy's like a child. If I can't have it, nobody can.
Exactly. Yeah, that's basically his attitude is like, I want all the world's oil, but if I can't have it, no one can, and I'm going to destroy everything because that's the worst possible thing someone could do because we heart oil. So the sidekick, though, points out a small problem. There are lots of problems, but he starts small here, which is how is Dr. Robeck going to get this microbe into the place where all of the oil is stored, basically the oil capital of the world called Petrol Aqua. It's one of the worst ones.
That's really bad. It doesn't roll off the tongue at all.
No, it's very hard to say.
Aqua. Is it petrol? Petrol with the L?
Petrol, yeah. Like gas.
Yeah. Like okay.
The borders.
These writers were struggling at this point. They were too busy working on Scooby-Doo. They're like, these are all of our like C plot ideas that never got passed.
Right. It got turned out of the Scooby-Doo writers room. They were like, we deal with monsters, not oil embargoes. Yeah. Take it somewhere else.
Yeah. But we already canceled The Amazing Chan. That would have been the perfect place to pull that or to bring that in. Oh, well, I guess you'll have to do it in Jabberjaw instead.
Write something else. Yeah. So yes, the borders to this rich, industrious place of Petrol Aqua are extremely heavily guarded, and everyone gets searched thoroughly upon entering. And at this point, I was thinking in my head, one does not simply walk into Petrol Aqua, aka the Boromir meme from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
One cannot simply walk into Mordor, but Petrol Aqua. So that's now the plot I'm having in my head separately is thinking about Lord of the Rings to help me get through.
Yeah.
The rest of this episode.
It's the only way you'll be able to understand what's going on.
Always. I always refer back to it. But fear not, for Robeck, of course, has a plan. Because yes, of course, everyone does get heavily searched by customs, essentially, when you enter Petrol Aqua. Unless, of course, you're able to hide in plain sight. And his plan is that he has entered a car into the upcoming Transmarine Aqua Car Race, a multi-day event spanning 1,000 miles in the open ocean, starting in some other fucking city and ending in Petrol Aqua itself. Meaning that the drivers in the cars get to literally speed into the city undisturbed during their final stretches to get to the finish line. No stopping and checking at the border. Slip something into the car, into the pocket of one of the drivers.
Yeah, that
no one's getting searched.
Huge security risk, but okay.
I do assume that they get checked afterwards. But if you get that handoff real quick between entering, handing it off to someone else who's already been searched, and then you get searched probably by authorities, I don't know.
There are definitely loopholes in this that can be exploited.
Yeah, exactly.
And I expect them to be later on in this episode.
And that is Robeck's entire plan, is to exploit the loopholes here. Even if they're checked beforehand, it's a multi-day race. They're not going to check the cars every day. On the second day, someone could slip something in. You don't know. So yes, that is the plan. Not everyone gets searched. You're going to hide it in there, and smuggling done. So meanwhile, while they're doing this whole plan, getting their little race driver set up and, entering the race, we join the Neptunes strolling back to their hotel, which has a swimming pool out front. And of course, Jabberjaw decides to jump in and swim around, which
terrifying.
Is still funny. Yeah, terrifying. Yeah. Still funny to me that you have an ocean right there and you have a swimming pool. But I guess hotels on beaches have swimming pools, so whatever. But still funny that it's giant shark. But yes, he's doing some laps in the pool.
On a beach is very different from a hotel in a beach in the ocean.
In the water, exactly. Yeah. And like you said, low-key terrifying, because all of the people who are in the pool start screaming because there's now a huge fucking shark in the water. And so of course the robot guards, who we've mentioned previously, they all hate sharks, run out and essentially kick Jabberjaw in the butt, kicking him out. And I guess since they were his accomplices, the rest of the Neptunes also get kicked to the curb, including all of their instruments and luggage.
Jeez.
And I assume that this hotel was also where their next gig was going to be, which clearly got canceled when they got kicked out. Because they all grown now that they have no place to stay, no money, and their next gig is 1,000 miles away. So what are we gonna do? So this gives me pause for two things of our speculation. Number one, Bubbles maybe once came from money, but this far in to being famous, they all had money at this point as a famous band. They've squandered it all. That's why they're playing hotels.
Space conventions.
Yeah. UFO conventions.
Where were they in your first episode? I forget. But just random ass gig. Random ass gig. Who's your booking agent? Yeah. Bubbles is the booking agent. That's why it's the dumbest places ever.
Right. She's still calling old family connections, but her parents are long gone. She's kind of the shame of the family. Yeah. Et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I think they're always out of money, because they've just squandered it all living that rock star lifestyle. They didn't need accountants, et cetera, et cetera.
/ it's expensive to buy all the food to feed Jabberjaw, so he doesn't eat
it's either the food or them. Yeah. That's why they can't keep a booking agent. They keep getting eaten by Jabberjaw these hard times.
Jabberjaw keeps eating them whenever the agent tells them, look, it's tough to get a show these days. And Jabberjaw just eats them instead. That's what you get for telling me.
We used to headline we used to headline Aqua Coachella. And now this.
Oh God.
But luckily, Biff, the ever
Conchella. Sorry. Conchella. Coachella. So
we used
many
to
because
a drunk,
we got
like
some pumpsy.
hungover
Yeah.
Jabberjaw after another bender. We used to be the headliners every year, Conchella.
Coachella.
And now we don't even make the list. But luckily, Biff, ever positive and gung ho, has an idea. As they stroll the streets of whatever city they're in and lament their situation, he notices a large ad for aforementioned Petrol Aqua Transmarine race, which is such a mouthful. But
Yeah.
yes, it happens to be the same one that Robeck was talking about. And it just so happens to start in the city they're currently in and end in the city where their next gig is, right?
Oh,
In Petrol
convenient.
Aqua.
Nice.
Very convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out Biff has an in with the race too. We learn that his wink wink old school pal reminded me of our amazing chant episode on the racetrack.
Yeah, they just copy the script.
Pretty much. I will say we never meet this old school pal, but I was like, caught in a favor, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
History, history will say they were pals.
And he's able to get a car to enter the race. Okay. And I will pause briefly to say that I do have some wild speculation about this in a little bit. But my first question is, if said friend can pull this many strings to get them a car and enter them into the race
at the last minute,
at the last minute, could he not just like spot them some bus fare to get them to the next gig? Instead of doing all this paperwork to get them and a shark into this ultra elite transmarine race.
Yeah, that probably, as we discussed before, has like ridiculous security protocol and measures and everything, and like a screening process and all of that. He's like, yeah, no problem, I can do that. Bus fare,
gonna be too much.
A little short on cash, but I can pull all sorts of strings. Yeah,
exactly. And so yes, we'll come back to this in a minute, including why Biff didn't just ask for that, but instead was like, this is our only option. But until we get there,
okay,
they are indeed able to enter the race as a team. We see them on a racetrack. They're looking at the different cars. Most of them have no idea clearly what they're doing there. Mm-hmm. We do see on the racetrack that Robeck has two also Russian goons, who I'm just going to call the Russians from here on out, who are going to be the drivers of their car that Robeck is sponsoring, aka smuggling for this race. Mm-hmm. He shows them a secret compartment in the car where he's hiding the vial with the microbe in it and telling them that they have to guard it with their lives once they're out on the open road. But like the Neptunes, these drivers are clearly like not actually professional race car drivers. I presume someone also forged some paperwork for them. And I think this because when the starting gun goes off, neither the Neptunes nor the Russians are in their car. They're just like, wow, look at this racetrack. Look at the shiny lights in the cars. Wow.
Whoa, that car almost hit me.
Hey, use your fucfucking blinker.
Yeah.
As they zoom by them.
Yeah.
And rightfully panicking, realizing, oh, we got to start this race now. The Neptunes run towards the cars, and in their panic, fucking Jabberjaw trips and does like a quadruple flip and lands in the backseat of one of the cars. And the Neptunes are speeding as well, and they jump in right after him and peel off into the race. As we see them peel away, question?
Well,
yes, the car keys are in there.
Yeah, okay. I guess no, sorry. In my mind, never mind. I probably just misunderstood what just happened. I guess I thought that Jabberjaw fell in a car and they just got in the same car as him and drove off. But you're saying he fell into one car and then they got into their car and followed him.
No. Your first impression was correct. He fell into a car and they said, "Okay, great, that's our car," and they got into the car with Jabberjaw.
But didn't the other guy pull all those strings to get them a car and they didn't even use it. They just stole someone else's car. These kids are a fucking menace.
Even more so, we saw them look at their car before, which was green. This is a white car.
It's like clear. It's blatant that they're okay.
Their car was not in the scene at all. The green car was not near them. It was not in the vicinity. It was like on the other side of the starting line, and they just said,
"This friend is probably so pissed right now." He's like, "Do you know what I went through to get you this car? And like, you have to be registered to the car that you're driving, that you're racing in." And now there's also like some other race car driver. They're like, "What the fuck? They just stole my car.
What the fuck is my car?" Yeah. Well, and even more so, not just any race car driver, but as we see them peel and screech away, we see leaving their dust the two Russian goons.
Of course.
Of course. It is their car that they just grand theft auto stole right in front of their fucking faces.
Like, no shit's given. Oh my God.
No shit's given.
Okay. All right.
And so at this point, Robeck sees this happen and radios his drivers. They got like a little walkie-talkies to be like, we'll steal their car back and get your fucking car back. But also with the caveat, you can't just ram them off the road. This is a like undersea worldwide televised event. Like this is a huge like Grand Prix or something like that.
That's a little a little too public to
they can't just ram into someone. Okay. At this point, like you, I'm wondering here a couple things. I got a couple questions about what's happening, both of like how the old pal is okay with. Okay, here's my questions. One, where are their instruments for the gig? Did the old school friend just send them on ahead, but not them?
The instruments are in the other car. He like pre-packed it for them.
But here's my thought about why Biff is so insistent and not budging about using like this hookup for this race versus like getting a loan or something. I think, it could fold into like your previous speculation of like what we did last episode of like they're aliens, but came down to like ingratiate themselves within human society.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know if they all came down together or had to find themselves, but I think Biff had a little bit of a past life before joining the Neptunes. I think Biff
can't wait for
used to be a fast and furious street racer. This is supported by the fact that even though they weren't in the car when the race fucking started, by the time we cut to the race, Biff is like a mile ahead of everybody else.
And they started late too.
Exactly.
They weren't paying attention.
And he's never even been in this car before.
Oh yeah.
But like in seconds, they have sped ahead of everybody else and are in the lead. And now my spiral continued. For I believe like in the moments, like basically whoever the old pal is in like his background here, I think was part of this old Fast and Furious street racing gang. And Biff decided to come out of retirement for one last race.
One last race.
Picture his friend who got the call was like, Biff, are you sure? You say you'd never come back, not after the accident. And Biff, probably smoking a cigarette, said, I have no choice.
In a garage, like surrounded by cars.
I have no choice. Yeah, it's really dimly lit. It's after hours. There's one fluorescent light hanging.
He lives there now. There's a small cot in the back corner where he sleeps because he has no family to go home to.
He says, I have no choice. This is the only way to get us to the Neptune's gig. It's all I got. This is the last time. And the friend said, that's what you said last time. And Biff flicks the cigarette on the ground, stamps it with a smile, and jumps into the car that Jabberjaw had fallen into. Before peeling away and leaving his friend in the dust with the mechanic, like greasy mechanic's rag, and wipes his head and says, "That son of a bitch." So that's why they were late, I think,
he
to
now
the
has
car.
a grease mark on his head. Oh my God.
So that's why I think
that's what you said last time. Yeah. This is nothing like last time.
I imagine that like said accident last time was like, look, I've never seen any of the Fast and Furious movies, but I would imagine
someone definitely died in the accident. Someone who he's close to,
someone who he loved dearly,
his like partner,
like
his girlfriend,
his partner, et cetera, et cetera. Like,
oh God, let me hear it. Let me hear it. Grace just thought of something hilarious. That was her face you
which means horrible. Quote unquote old school friend, aka his lover. It was their adopted child who died.
And that's why the old school friend was so worried about Biff getting involved in this again. He's like, "Are you sure you want to go? That you remember what happened last time? We lost everything, Biff." And it was all in your hands.
He's throwing down the rag. You had said that last time that it was the last time, and look what happened. Every time you say one last time, someone dies, Biff. Who's it going to be this time?
I hope for the love of all of us, or for the life of all of us, it's Shelley.
And Biff has another like half smoked cigarette in his hand, just goes, "Huh, we'll see," and throws it again. But he's in an active mechanics garage, so an explosion
there's like oil everywhere.
And that's how he walks out.
He walks out and jumps into the car.
The Russians are like, they can have the micro.
Take the car. Yeah, take the car and the micro.
They're like, shoot. Is that Biff? We've seen that peel out before. Oh shit. We know him.
He won't stop at anything. He'll stop for nothing. Oh my God, we're dead. We're dead.
Yeah, this is it. We're not even getting the other car. We're out. We're going to witness protection. We're turning Ro back in. So we've seen what Biff can do.
So Biff is the star of today's episode, is what you're telling me. I like this. I need more Biff exposure. I'm interested in his life.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more speculation that continues throughout this.
Very good.
So, anyways, yes, the Russian guys go jump into presumably Biff's old car that I imagine on the windshield has an old like half-burnt family portrait of Biff, the school pal, and their kid.
It's like folded in or something. Like they folded in the part with the dead kid on it. So it's just the picture of Biff and his pal, quote unquote.
The school pal, wink wink, has been keeping that car like in the back of the garage. And when Biff showed up to race, he had to like whip the like sheet off of it, being like, no one's touched it since, well, you know.
The accident. Since it happened. Jabberjaw walks up to Biff like, "Are you sure you're ready to do this, Biff? We can hold off. We know it's been tough ever since the accident." Everyone just keeps pausing and saying,
in your editing of this, can you put the dramatic music in every time?
Yes. Oh God. Yeah. Can I also just say too?
Yeah.
These, for those listening and watching, if you haven't already noticed, in these first 3 Jabberjaw episodes, I'm pretty sure that like 60% of the audio is just us laughing.
And I've cried every episode.
Same. This has now been 3 episodes in a row where we're just like constantly wiping tears, because this is just too much. It's too much in the best way. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So the Russians, though, I guess more scared of Dr. Robeck than they are Biff at this point.
And a 15-foot giant great white
Giant
shark.
They're like, we'll take the shark at this
Please.
point.
Biff is crazy.
They hop on to the freeway to the race as well. And Robeck, who's obviously also closely watching this race, has like a little cool his own aqua car that, you know, they can all kind of also be helicopters, submarines, or whatever. So he's like kind of floating above the whole course to scout out basically like how can they trap the Neptunes who now have the vial, the microbe in it, without, you know, like disrupting the whole race, blah, blah, blah. So Robeck notices that because now at this point they're like out in the open sea on this transmarine race, that up ahead there's like a detour that's been set for the race because if they continue on straight, they get into construction zone. So Robeck, like a good villain of this world, has lasers and shoots away the detour signs and the construction signs so that Biff, who is so far in the lead, drives straight towards the construction zone instead of taking the detour. And in this construction zone, Biff, the pro, is leaping over giant potholes and like craters in the middle of the road. He's like driving through huge pipes and equipment. He is weaving in and out of cranes until finally, in veering away from a steamroller, he crashes right into the tree.
Into the tree. Wait, why is there a tree?
I wasn't going to bother explaining. The construction site brought them into like a little bubble city. I was like,
our workers were getting a little down in the dumps, so we had to add some greenery. I thought it'd be kind of cute just for them to like also rip the tree out for the construction that they're doing.
It's like definitely in like an underwater town. So like they're in a bubble, but I was like, this is too much to explain. And like that's what happens. There's a tree. And they crash into it. And the crash is so sudden.
It's like the only tree in all of the underwater world, and they managed to crash into it. Wow, exactly. Great driving.
And a couple
found the one tree.
One that happened. One, the crash is so sudden that the engine literally flies out of the car, which at first I was like, what the fuck? But have you ever heard of the Ford Pinto from the 70s? Do you know about this car?
No.
So I obviously can't describe it to you because I don't know anything about cars. But in the 70s, there was a Ford car called the Pinto. And it was this huge problem because Ford, as a, you know, hungry corporation, refused to spend like a very, very, very minuscule amount of money to make a change to the Pinto. Because the problem with the Pinto was that, like basically where like the gas tank and engine were, there was no bumper in between. So if you even got into a small fender bender, the gas tank would rupture and explode into flames. And like 27 people died from it.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like the Pinto was like a death car, essentially.
Yeah. Wow. So it costs less. That's so funny.
Yeah, it like costs less to make the small change than it did to like deal with the lawsuits of like families of their loved ones who
people
died.
Dying. Exactly. Yeah. That's crazy. And probably started the whole like belief of people's belief that if a car just like fastly crashed into something, it like exploded.
Yes,
which
exactly,
like no, that doesn't typically happen unless there's some sort of mechanical issue with the car, aka
and the Pinto
like
sure
this
did.
It sure had one. It sure did too many times. Wow. Sad though. God rest in peace to those 27 folks. That was a long time
there's
ago,
like
I know, but
a handful of podcasts that like talk about it and go through like the moment by moment and like how fucking crazy like the actual even like pricing of it all was.
Yeah.
It's wild. And basically the head of Ford was like, no, make this car even smaller, because like European cars were becoming popular, and that's why like the gas tank got so compressed. Anyways, it's
Yeah.
fucking wild. So
Interesting.
the other thing that happened,
Classic.
I imagine, in this moment is that Biff, I imagine, re-seeing the possible flames, is picturing the last time he said, one last time. Because we also see, and I imagine this is what happened last time too, that this car, which has just been totally fucked up, again, the engine is out, the gas tank is out, and the gas is literally leaking down onto Shelly.
Oh no. Oh, of all people. She's
Who's
pissed.
yelling at Jabberjaw to help her.
Oh, to help. I was like, what if
Yeah.
it's not his fault, but okay.
No,
Yeah.
yelling for help because she's now being
Yeah.
drenched in oil.
Yeah.
And I
Fair.
imagine Biff seeing in slow motion Jabberjaw notice a compartment that opened in the car and reach in for the substance that he doesn't know what it is, but he decides to slowly open and thinking for some reason it's like cleaning supplies, pours it on Shelly. And I imagine Biff breathing in slow motion with PTSD, knowing any amount of substance will light her directly on fire.
Yeah.
Just like last time. But luckily,
Just
the thing
before the accident.
But luckily, the thing that Jabberjaw just blindly pours onto Shelly immediately eats away all of the gas that was on her, and they are amazed.
Mm.
And just then, with Biff still shaking out of his frozen state of fear, the two Russian drivers whiz up to Jabberjaw and just yank the vial out of his fin and speed away. They follow him into the construction zone.
Okay. But they're not in the car anymore, right? They're still they're out of the car because it crashed into the tree.
Oh, the Neptunes? Yeah, they're like scattered about. They're standing outside.
It's actually a bloodbath.
They were thrown from the car. Like truly, the car, like here is the tree, the car is bent in half. Like again,
also
saving descriptions, but I'll tell you them now. Literally, Jabberjaw was hanging on a branch because he got thrown into the tree. I don't know where Bubbles and Clamhead are.
Also wild that you decided to bring Fast and Furious into this, because that's how the star of Fast and Furious died.
Oh no!
He crashed his car into a tree and it exploded.
Oh no, that's so
Paul Walker.
I'm so sorry. I knew that he died, but I didn't think like that.
That's exactly. It's just a little wild, but hey, good on you.
Whoops. Like I said at the start of this episode, isn't it funny how cartoons relate to real life?
Yeah.
In unexpected ways.
Very unexpected. Oh man. Wow. Okay. So gotcha. Because so the reason I was so confused is because I thought they were still in a car. And so
no,
like, how the hell did they just like grab it out of the car, out of Jabber's hand from the car?
Scattered about the construction site everywhere.
They actually need help like immediately. This was a horrific crash.
Yeah, exactly. But the two guys driving up and stealing some shit from seeing that vial from Jabberjaw is pretty sus. At this point, Shelly wonders aloud whether this quote unquote accident was no accident at all, which makes sense because they know Biff can drive better than this.
Mm.
So they search the car and realize that this now open compartment was hidden before and thus must have been used to smuggle in whatever those two people came and stole, something that clearly eats away at gas and oil. But Biff, familiar with tragedy and getting out of accidents, I'm sure, because of the accident, is able to somehow get this car repaired and back into motion, but a lot of time has been wasted. And now they just don't want to win the race. They must stop these two Russians from whatever plot they've been a-brewing here. So they hop back in the car and he gives Jabberjaw and Shelly a map to find a shortcut somewhere in the open ocean where they basically could circumvent the race and get ahead, which I'm thinking here. So they're going to cheat,
Yeah,
to which I'm thinking rules of the street, rules Biff used to live by which I mean no rules.
No rules. No rules. Renegade Biff, who knew?
And Bubbles and Clamhead, BT dubs, this whole time are pretty quiet. Presumably, they knew that Biff during his old racing days, like they knew of him, but I've never seen him fully in action. And like they're pretty fucking scared.
Yeah, so they're
to
just
see
like
Biff in his
sitting
full
in the
form
back
here.
seat, like
yeah, silent.
We might die. Oh well.
Every now and then, Bubbles says that like they should probably like call the authorities so that they can stop the Russians.
There she goes again.
But being a narc, but I assume Biff, and this is was my speculation from your last episode, can't go to the authorities. He's absolutely a wanted man. At the very least, getting in a race car again will be a violation of his parole.
They can't know. They can't know that he was behind the wheel.
Yeah, he wants to stay clear of that.
Yeah.
I think in your last episode, he knew to never go up to the authorities. He's a wanted man.
Exactly. Only go if you're clearing your name.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But they are able to find a shortcut, and it's over this abandoned road that at one point has an entire bridge that's been blown out, like in a giant like crevice. And without hesitation, we see this real Biff here. He makes Jabberjaw get out of the car and throw himself across the gap like a bridge, and Biff straight up drives over him and continues the race, and Jabberjaw has to swim after them to get back in the car because Biff doesn't fucking wait for anyone.
No, he's like, we're moving, catch up.
Yeah. You will get left behind.
Yeah.
So thanks to their shortcut,
no respect for Jabberjaw at all.
No respect at all.
Yeah.
My only respect is for the road. Throws another cigarette.
Yeah.
Suddenly we notice Biff has like a neck tattoo. It says family.
Yeah. Piercings. He like rolls up his sleeves and it's like a bunch of scars and shit, like burn marks and scars from the accident.
Is he in a white tee? Wait a second. Where's wetsuit come?
Where did those chains on his jeans come from? Where do those Doc Martin boots come from? Like big black boots.
Are the laces burnt up? They're the same laces from.
I'm gonna have to put that soundbite in so much, and I can't wait.
So, thanks to the shortcut and playing by Fast and Furious rules, Biff is able to come whipping back out onto the track ahead of the track. And we see the two Russian drivers who are indeed holding the vial. They've called Robeck to be like, it's under control. Thanks for the diversion. We got this. And Robeck tells them to finish the race and act like everything is normal, like be a normal like race car driver. Don't draw attention to yourselves. You still need to smuggle this shit into Petrol Aqua.
Yeah.
And thus the drivers follow the rules of this race, such as pulling over, at like the I don't know what to call them, like pit stops, like the mechanic stops that all racetracks have.
Something like that, yeah.
Where like the pit crews like stop, and have you ever watched those videos where it's like they have to take like less than 5 seconds to like change the tires and do all that crazy shit, like the faster they are, the better,
etc.
Yeah. So yeah, that whole like car tune-up, I'm sure it has a name that I didn't look up, obviously.
Yeah.
So the Russians get flagged down by one of those pit crews, so they whip into the stop. And we see the pit crew in matching yellow caps, the blue mechanic jumpsuits, is in fact the Neptunes. Because they were able to pull so far ahead of everyone with their shortcut. I guess they were able to beat up the actual pit crew, tie them up.
Hide them. take their clothes, figure out who matched whose size, try everything on.
And now
Yeah.
I don't know how these drivers didn't really clue into the fact that one of the mechanics is a great white shark. But they're in the car for a little bit here.
There's
Get
a
out of the
lot going
car.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to be in the race here. They're trying to get on the road. And Jabberjaw gets to act as the head mechanic of this pit crew, really just to be a distraction. He blocks out a lot of things because he's a giant 15-foot great white shark.
Yes.
And he starts telling the drivers that they've really, driven this car into the road. They've really worn this shit down. They got to do a lot of work here real quick. And the rest of the Neptunes get to work absolutely fucking up this car. I think this is actually under the direction of Biff, like, he knows how to fuck up a car real quick.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're literally like taking out car parts. Like they slice and like explode one of the tires. At this point, the Russians have jumped out of the car and are starting to scream at them, being like, "What the fuck are you doing to our car?"
Do you even work
at this
here?
point, yeah. At this point, Jabberjaw is like under the hood, chucking shit out. And they realize at this point, oh, this is the great white shark we saw before. This isn't a pit crew member.
Thought it was some other great white shark.
Yeah, we're so confused. And so they kind of like start running at him and like grabbing at him, but he doesn't go down because, again, he's literally a great white shark and they are humans. And they tussle for a second, and eventually the two Russians get out their Dissolvo ray, which is just another laser gun, standard again for the villains in this world. And they start shooting at everyone as they back away. And instead of jumping into their now fucked up car, they take the car the Neptunes had been using and speed away, leaving the Neptunes with the broken down one.
Oops, shouldn't have fucked it up that bad.
Yep, exactly.
They gotta fix it.
But again, a few things happen during this chaos. One, the animators fully forgot for literally about 0.8 seconds of a clip that they were all wearing the same thing. And for 0.8 seconds, it goes from black and blue and yellow jumpsuits to like one moment of Shelly in like a bright pink jumpsuit. And then the next second she's back to being in blue.
Was she ever wearing the bright pink jumpsuit in this episode? Where the fuck did it come from?
They were like, for 1 second, they forgot that she had main character energy. She wouldn't be wearing the blue ones. And then they were like, pink takes up a lot of ink. Put her back in the blue prison jumpsuit here.
We ran out of pink.
Yeah.
Put her back in blue.
Put her back in blue, baby. So the next thing is, of course, Biff, our knowledgeable car mechanic, is able to very quickly put the car back together, get back on the road. But perhaps most importantly is that during the little tussle between Jabberjaw and the Russians, Jabberjaw was able to pickpocket one of them and get the vial back.
Okay.
So now they got the little micro vial again. But of course, the Russians have realized this by the time they're on the road. And so while the Neptunes get back on the road, we see that the Robeck drivers, aka the Russians, had pulled to the side of the road, waited for them to come back, and immediately get back on the track to tail the Neptunes as they drive by. So at this point, they need to lose this tail. They don't know what else to do. So Biff speeds off the side of the track, I presume going through all types of like barriers and that kind of stuff, not giving a fuck anymore that this
people
is a
jumping out of the way. You have pit crews like getting trampled over, like,
exactly,
ran over. Yeah,
cameras getting knocked down, like all of a sudden helicopters are starting to follow. Like he's clearly going rogue at this point.
Yeah,
the authorities are like, we know those skid marks.
Biff is back.
Right, they're calling in like the undersea, like
See like a
intelligence
montage of these different
agency.
agencies, yeah,
Yeah, all
and
getting
like
ready.
the Navy too, the like U.S. Navy and Coast Guard.
Yeah,
Biff is
all just
back
like
down here,
gearing up.
putting you on notice.
What's the agency that like regulates like um who like come after you if you're stockpiling guns?
The alcohol, tobacco, and fire ATF,
Yeah, the
something like
ATF
that. They
is
can,
getting ready.
yeah.
They're like, he's smuggling
We're
guns
ready.
into Petro
Yeah.
Aqua.
Yeah. There you see him like loading into ships and like submarines.
There's like
Yeah.
one ATF agent who's like at his house just making his morning cup of joe with some Folgers and his wife, and he gets the
It's a
call,
phone call.
and all we hear on the other line is, I know you just retired, but he's back, and he drops the Folgers like
You just hear the
grinds.
shattering glass.
You hear the wife in the background saying, not again, not after.
Plot twist. This agent used to be a partner of Biff's, but he went clean after the accident and decided to use his skills to save people rather than to harm them. He tried so long to get Biff to see the light and to come back, but Biff went into hiding. And actually, this agent secretly is known where Biff has been all along, but since he and Biff were so tight, he couldn't give away
as
his
long
location.
As Biff stayed undercover was their deal.
Exactly. As long as you stayed away from the road, as long as the last time was truly the last time. But no, now Biff, he's back on the road. He's back. And the agent, he's got to get back into action too.
The agent sees a single text from the old school pal that says, I'm sorry. And an old black and white picture of the three of them together.
That's why it was folded in. The one that was folded in the car, it was folding off the ATF agent because he left the gang and they all broke up. So Biff unfolds it at this exact moment right after we see the ATF
they
agent.
are in the original car
Biff
too.
is like driving, racing through people, and he pulls out the picture and folds it out. This is for you. It's the ATF agent. Yeah.
Who has the kid who died on his shoulders.
It's his
That's
kid.
How tight they all were.
It was his kid. Biff and the college pal, they were real life romantic partners, but they were like the uncle to this kid. And then when his kid died, that's why he had to leave this life of crime and join the ATF so that no one else's children would die in such a horrible accident. Yes.
The ATF agent gets out his wallet and has it like montages from Biff looking at the picture to the ATF agent looking at the picture from his wallet.
But he folds out Biff's picture, like Biff was folded in. So they're just like at the same time folding out the opposite. Yeah. And you see the pal like in the middle, just looking at the whole picture. He's never folded any side.
He's pacing. We see like cans of coffee everywhere, like cigarettes everywhere, so scared.
He's like, no, I gotta run. I gotta run now. This is my last time.
Yeah, he's packing up his suitcase. This race is never gonna let him work at it again. He's got to go on the run again, hit those streets.
This has gotten too out of hand. I gotta run. I gotta hide. Oh God, the ATF is getting involved now.
They're both gonna come.
I can't look out for you any longer. Hangs up. Sends that single text to the agent. I'm sorry. Never seen from again.
Tucks the picture away in his pocket.
He tucks in the other end so that he's the only one showing in the picture.
It's time to be alone again.
Oh man.
So after the destruction of Biff, they pull into one of the most obvious places and easiest transitions from what we were just talking about, a tuna ranch, which is like a chicken farm by some chicken. It's huge bluefin tuna on a little ranch.
Yet again, there were a lot of ways that I thought that sentence was going to end. That was not one of them.
Yeah.
This show just keeps me on my toes, man.
So yes, they drive into this ranch where we see Tuna, yeah, swimming in pens, etc., non pastures. Everyone tucks and rolls out of the car this time to go like hide in the farm. But this time it's pretty easy for the drivers to fucking find a great white shark among tuna because they know what to look for now.
And four
So,
humans.
yeah. So using their ray guns, they corner Jabberjaw and demand the vial from him, which he does indeed give up and hand back to them. At this point, Biff is on fire. Biff has gone into like seeing red mode. Like, no, this is what made him so famous and like unstoppable. This isn't a problem at all. Before getting back on the road, they jump into their car and he very quickly essentially pimps it out. Or maybe like this was his original car anyways from his street racing days, we've decided, because remember they got back their original car.
Yeah.
And so we see that this car basically turns into like while it's on the road, all of a sudden like the wheels like can like, or I guess the car can shoot up and have the wheels stay down. So it's like the car is now like 15
like
to 20
Inspector
feet in the
Gadget
air.
style
Yes,
type
exactly.
of okay. Yeah.
Yep. And so they do that and they drive atop the Russian's car. And Biff
You
makes
can't go past, go over.
Yep. Biff makes Jabberjaw lean out the window of their car and break into the Russians' car to yank the vial out of their hands and come back in. And then they come back down and continue to speed away.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I guess the adrenaline cooled off a little bit because, like I said, this is a 2-day race, a multi-day race. So they have to camp for the night. And of course, it's like an established campground. It's like where the first end of the race finishes.
Mm-hmm.
And at the camp, they do feel safe because there's a lot of people around, like there's a lot of officials. I presume Biff feels safe because now he can blend into the crowd. And he knows that the ATF agents aren't going to suddenly raid a crowd. They've made that mistake before.
Yeah, it was deadly. It was a bloody mess.
Exactly. So they know not
to
just raid and go in blindly. So they're keeping an eye on him, presumably, but not going in quite yet. So Biff feels safe.
Okay.
But in the middle of the night, all the drivers are in their tents. All the spectators are also have gone home or at least camping nearby. But we see Robeck himself creeping through the camp silently. And just outside of the Neptune's tent, he turns the ray gun on himself and shoots it, which renders him invisible.
Oh. He was like, I give up.
I'm going to frame Biff for murder. If I can't take him down, I know who will.
I was like, wow, this show really just took it there.
Dark turn.
Yeah.
No, he's got like an invisiray type of shit.
Okay.
So he strolls right into the tent because he's fucking invisible now, apparently, and starts rustling around all of their stuff, including very creepily unzipping Jabberjaw's sleeping bag to like rustle around in it, which I will say the sleeping bag's really cute because it has a little fin shape for his tail.
So he can slide
also
right in.
like the biggest sleeping bag of all time because he's a shark.
It's got to fit 4,000 pounds of shark in it.
May we emphasize again?
Yes.
But all of this creepy feeling around makes Jabberjaw laugh because he's getting basically tickled. Again, terrifying. And everyone wakes up being like, Jabberjaw, shut up. We've had a long day. We need our sleep. But the invisible Robeck realizes that Jabberjaw doesn't have it. And so he starts just throwing around the rest of the band who are unable to defend themselves because they can't see who or what is there. And in the bedlam that ensues, he is indeed able to find and grab the vial of the microbe and run out again. You had a question about a man turning invisible and sleeping and searching through the sleeping tent?
Yes. Yes. So I didn't realize that Jabberjaw was in the sleeping bag when he was going through the sleeping bag. And yes, it makes it a lot more concerning than initially thought to be. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they were all sleeping in there. And yeah, he just unzips and goes right in like a little creep.
Invisible. That's like literally the plot of Invisible Man, or like Hollow Man, which like the dude turns into like a sex pest because he's invisible.
Yeah,
he's like
exactly.
Going into ladies' bedrooms.
I left it out, but Robeck did unzip every other person's sleeping bag and do the same thing too.
Including
and I was
Shelley
like, this is
Bubbles.
Incredibly inappropriate. Great. Yes, correct.
And they're teenagers. Yep. I guess we can assume they're 18 maybe, but this very likely that lots of crimes going on here. These might be the worst crimes we've seen so far in this, this arc.
Yeah, this whole episode is overfilling with crime happening here.
Yes.
And now at this point, this violation that has happened, Biff no longer cares about winning. Now he only cares about revenge, because now his friends have been brought into it. So the next morning, he's staying right on the Russian's tail in now a soundtracked high-speed chase, in which each car is both trying to ram one another off the road. They're continually going back and forth in James Bond style, like being able to like stretch out and reach into the other's car and get the vial. All of a sudden, the Russians aren't fucking around anymore and they're full on shooting their laser guns out the windows at Biff and the band. As Biff is soaring through, his wheels are probably fucking on fire at this point. All that he can look at is the picture, the memory.
This is for you.
He crumples it up in his hand.
Throws it out the window.
It gets zapped by one of the lasers. It's time to move past the accident. Yeah, it's on fire behind him. His eye twitches a little bit.
Yeah.
Clamhead grabs his shoulder supportively.
We got this, man. Don't worry. There won't ever be another accident.
The camera crew that is filming the documentary about this band falling apart is shaking in the backseat. Terrified.
They have to like have another car driving around with them with like the extra equipment and stuff. So this other car is like speeding through shit too. And like
it's getting all of like the like misfires from the lasers. That car is
producers
exploding.
Like sweating inside trying to keep up with Biff.
Biff just driving like this, looks out as like the second camera crew explodes and looks back to the camera guy in their car and goes, looks like you'll need a new crew. And like speeds away. So anyways, as they rip into Petrol Aqua. Back to our totally normal story. I don't know which was more wild. I feel like our speculation is less wild than this episode even.
It is. Yeah, like we're actually making this story more normal.
Yeah, we're like basing this on Fast and Furious vibes. Yeah. They are just wilding out there.
Yeah, this was long before Fast and Furious came out. So like for them to be thinking of this stuff is like out of pocket. Wow. But
so at this point, yes, they are speeding into Petrol Aqua. The Russians are on their tail now and getting even better laser shots on this car, to the point where parts of the car are starting to absolutely disintegrate in front, all around them. Biff isn't stopping though. Again, when he gets in the zone, he sees red, baby.
Only the weak stop.
Exactly. At this point, the roof is gone. The seats in the car are gone. It's literally just the undercarriage and the two front wheels. And Biff makes Jabberjaw grab onto the back like a wheelbarrow
and run or like
sprint to the finish line. And they cross that finish line, baby. First fucking place.
Nice.
Jabberjaw, who we've seen, loves the applause because they are entering into like this enormous stadium, like 100,000 plus people in it. He chucks down the car and starts bowing at the finish line. As he is, the drivers and Robeck, who's gotten out of his car now, speed in as well and try to jump out of their various vehicles and try to take down Jabberjaw in the last attempt to get the vial. But Jabberjaw spins, thinks quickly, and knocks down the like finish line banner and is able to envelope them in the banner and cords, and the rest of the Neptunes come in and tackle them. Jeez. Or at least I imagine that Shelly, Bubbles, and Clamhead do. I imagine Biff is wiping a single drop of blood from his chin as he takes his helmet off in one corner of the stadium with his mechanic rag and suitcases, his old pal. In another corner, the ATF agent is holding up his hand, telling him to stop.
Yeah.
They both are shaking their heads. Biff smiles at them, and the ATF agent says, "You've done it again, you bastard." Puts his gun away.
Yeah. Calls all the guards off. Yeah, wrap it up. Like, and no, we're done. We're clear.
Yeah. Hangs onto the side of a helicopter as it speeds away. The old pal has his cap low.
Yeah. He's like nods.
Goes back
like into the crowd.
To the crowd. Disappears. Pats the pocket where the picture is.
All three of them pat the pocket at the same time. Well, I guess Biff threw his picture out of the car. He pulls out another one.
Yeah, he's got lots of copies.
I got a lot of these. I think of The Accident every single day.
I need them in every corner of my life, just as a reminder of The Accident.
There's an end credit scene where like they find out that Dr. Roebuck is still out there, and so you see like the ATF agent becomes Nick Fury from the Marvel movies and like goes around the world getting all the gang back together and starting a team.
Right, like we actually see. Wait, let me finish the episode and I'll tell you.
Go ahead, my bad. Yeah.
It turns out their big gig was the Transmarine race. So we end the episode with the Neptunes playing on the racetrack, and the audience is going wild about it.
Nice.
We don't see what happens to Roebuck and the Russians. So I think you're right. That I think they evaded capture.
Yeah.
I think what happened at the end is that, yeah, the ATF agent, how we know that he's doing this is that the next morning his wife wakes up, goes down to like, the pot of coffee is still hot, but next to it is the ATF badge just sitting there and another copy of the picture. And she goes, oh no. She runs to the garage and opens it, and his old street car is gone.
Yeah.
And we just see her like slowly sit down.
The other child that didn't die comes downstairs. It's like, where's Daddy?
Honey,
Daddy's on a work trip. He'll be back soon. I hope. Stares out the window.
A thunder crash, lightning outside the window. That same lightning bolt takes us to the ATF driver, like speeding in the rain, like splashing everywhere. The old pal is hitchhiking, trying to find a ride to the new life, but the ATF agent whips up next to him and kicks open the door and just says, "Get in."
A ride.
He jumps in, and we end the scene with the picture of the three of them in the rain. Like thunder and lightning in the background just pouring,
like fell out of one of their pockets. They all look super happy.
Yeah, and it like slowly unfolds again.
Yeah. Like,
to reveal a fourth person who we don't know yet.
Yes.
And that's how it ends.
The ATF agent and the hitchhiker, aka old pal, just look at each other like, well, there's one more of the old gang that we haven't seen in a while. Speeds up.
And then we just hear the
hardcore music starts playing. Yeah, and then the credits roll. Yeah.
You know the Fast and Furious font? It says Jabberjaw.
No.
Two Jabber, two Jaw.
This is this episode, damn it.
And that's the end.
Yeah, that's
Roll credits.
oh shit.
So
amazing.
The end.
Absolutely amazing job.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Oh
So
God. Wow.
That's our journey so far here with Jabberjaw.
Hope you enjoyed. Hope you're
past
enjoying
lives of all of these band members.
Yes.
Etc. etc. I imagine Biff after this erases all of the documentary footage of this. He like holds the filmmakers about this like disintegrating band, like, you better erase that film. Puts his hand in his pocket. Obviously a gun in there.
Know it's gonna happen if you don't erase it.
The single producer who's left is like showing him that he's erasing it.
He was like, I was in the car following you guys. I agree. I already deleted that footage.
Yeah, he like,
because like they're also implicated in the crimes.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go film the tour that we're on. Yes, sir.
Sure, whatever you say, wherever you want to go. Yeah. Oh my God, amazing. Wow.
Thank you. And folks, we will continue the grand adventures of the Neptunes and good old Jabberjaw next week with another episode that promises to make just as little sense. Yeah. So we will wildly speculate about it instead.
We will. We will. And, we'll, as if these shows or these episodes of the show weren't already exciting enough, or already wild enough. Why not make them even more wild and nonsensical? I can't wait.
Exactly.
Can't wait. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Can't wait for your episode next week. And between now and next week, who should our listeners and viewers tell about this show?
Tell Vin Diesel. I'm sure he would love to know that like 30 years before the Fast and Furious came out, maybe less than that, whatever. Like the movie had already been done in the form of an episode of Jabberjaw. So let him know. Tell him about this podcast and he'll see how he likes this show.
Yeah, perfect. I think I was going to love it first and foremost. We're probably going to see in Fast and Furious 12 a character named Biff show up.
Probably at this rate, yeah.
Based on this.
You guys better pay us. You're welcome for giving you the idea.
You're welcome. And then I think after that, so I, similar to never having actually seen Fast and Furious, I've never played Grand Theft Auto, but I'm imagining that like with a lot of gaming, you can like talk to other players or at least like whenever you can hop on Discord with your friends. Tell other people playing Grand Theft Auto with you.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's some theft of cars, of autos that happen in this episode.
That is indeed the premise of the game.
Exactly, and it happens
Grand theft, perhaps.
Yes, indeed. So tell your...
A new one is coming out soon, too, so that's actually a good plug for the algorithm.
Yeah, you're welcome, everyone. So tell your gamer friends. And till next week, we'll see y'all then.
We'll keep on thinking about the two most important things in life: family, aka family, and the accident.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Saturday Morning Mysteries.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share, rate, review, leave us a like, and drop a comment. We post episodes every Saturday and bonus tune tangents whenever we feel like it. So please subscribe so you don't miss the shenanigans.
And if you want to follow us on YouTube, click the bell under the YouTube subscribe button to receive notifications when new videos are posted.
And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, we have no idea what you're listening to us on, so just hit the big subscribe button on whatever app you're using. We believe in you.
Give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at SatmornMist, all the abreves, and let us know if you have any episode or show requests by emailing SaturdayMorningMysteries@gmail.com.
Thanks to Jenna Kendall for the logo design and to Ava Sakiki for the music used during this week's episode.
See y'all groovy kids next week on Saturday Morning Mysteries.